Good morning. This is Padma Mahapatro. Welcome to our first online class for class 6 students. Today I would be starting with the first chapter, that is Introduction to History. Just like we need to know the name of the book before we study, obviously we know the name of the book and then we go through the book or read the book. In a similar way, without knowing the name of the movie, we do not watch a movie. Similarly, there is no point in studying history without knowing what is the meaning of history or what does history got to do with. So, this is our first class in history. This is an introduction to history. To understand history, we need to know the meaning of history. So, history is the study of past events. It is the study of what is history? It is a study of past events in a chronological order. Past events in a chronological order. In a chronological order. So children, what do you understand by the meaning of chronological? Chronological means the occurrence of events, the arrangement or the occurrence of the events according to the date wise, or it is a sequential arrangement of events in order of its occurrence. It is a sequential arrangement of events in order according to their occurrence is called chronological order. So history is the study of past events in a chronological order, or we can also say that it is a record. It is a study or a record of the past events in a chronological order. We can also better frame it. History is the study of the past in the light of the present. What? History is the study of the past in the light of the present. It is a study of the past in the light of the present. So what are we studying in history? It is the study of what? Of the past in the light of the present. So we are studying the past in present is called nothing but history. So this is all about history. History is a record or it is a study of the past events in a chronological order. Chronological order means a record maintaining a systematic record according to their occurrences. Or history is the study of the past in the light of the present. Is it clear? Then next, moving on to what is the importance of history. So why do we need to know the past? What is the importance of history, or what is the significance of history? What is the importance of history? Why do we need to study history? What is the importance of history? What is the importance of history? We need to study history because we can understand the present only if we have a clear understanding or a clear knowledge or idea about the past. So why do we need to study history? What is its significance or importance? We need to study history because we can understand the present only when we have a clear understanding or a clear knowledge about the past, right? To provide a clear idea or the picture, or we can act in a better way. We can act in a better way in the present situation only when we got to know about the past happenings. In the present situation, we can act in a better way or we can handle it in a better way only when we have an idea about the past happenings. Therefore, we need to study history. Not only that, history also provides a descriptive study. What? A descriptive study about the evolution of man. What is evolution? Evolution means how man came into existence. History tells us, it gives us a descriptive study about the evolution of man, about the various civilizations. Not only that, also about the various spheres of life of man, like what about his social life, his political life, his religious life, and goes on, political life, religious, social life, and etc. For this reason, we need to study history. So now let us see what is the relation between history and geography. What is the relation between history and geography? What? What is the relation between history and geography? History and geography are very closely associated because life of man is greatly influenced or affected by the geographical conditions. What is geography? Geography is the study of the physical structure of earth, atmosphere, and so on. Or we can, in easier terms, we can frame it as geography is the study of land. It is the study of land. It is the study of we can better frame it like geography is the study of land or earth, okay, and so on. So geography is the study of physical features of the earth, atmosphere excuse me, earth, atmosphere, and so on, because life of man is affected by the land and the climatic conditions. For example, we know that many river valley civilizations, like example, what are river valley civilizations? Example, the very popular Indus Valley civilization. Indus Valley civilization, the Egyptian civilization, the Mesopotamian civilization, the Chinese civilization. Most of the civilizations are found to be located on the banks of the rivers. Therefore, they are popularly termed as river valley civilization. Indus Valley civilization is Indus Valley civilization was found on the banks of river Indus. Similarly, Egyptian civilization was found on the banks of river Nile. So, what do we know from our past studies? That many civilizations did exist, but they dwelled on the banks of various rivers. Why? Because the land or the soil on the banks of the rivers was very fertile for agriculture. The soil was very rich, it was fertile for agriculture. There was plenty of supply of water. And not only that, the rivers provided a cheap means of transportation or a source of means of communication for easy trade and etc. So what do we understand from this point? There is a close relation between history and geography. Okay. History is dependent on geography because geography means it is a study of the physical features of earth, about land, climate, atmosphere, and so on. So, if the river valley civilization existed on the banks of the river because the soil was fertile, there was plenty of supply of water for agriculture, it was easy means of communication for carrying out trade and all. In a similar way, if the climatic conditions are hostile or if they are harsh, like earthquakes, floods and all, what happens? People generally tend to move on. They migrate from one place to another. So let me tell you in a very condensed form that, so it would not be wrong in concluding that there is a very close link or an association between history and geography. Next, we can study history in a time frame. What is time frame? We can study history in time frame. In a time frame, you can put it in a time frame. What is time frame in history? Time frame in history, according to historians. According to historians, who are historians? Historians are the people who study history on the basis of archaeological sources or literary sources. People who study history are called as historians. So according to historians, the time frame in history can be broadly divided or classified into two. What is that? BC and, according to historians, history, the time frame in history can be broadly divided into two: BC and AD. BC stands for before Christ and AD stands for Anno Domini, or the period after Christ. Okay, AD stands for Anno Domini, or the period after Christ. And BC stands for the period before Christ. So who are historians, children? People who study history on the basis of archaeological sources, literary sources. People who study history are called historians. Historians have divided this time frame into two parts, that is BC and AD. BC stands for before Christ and AD stands for Anno Domini, or the period after Christ. In BC, the period is counted backward. In BC, it is counted backwards. What do you mean by counted backwards? Normally in numbers or digits, we first count 98. After 98 comes 99. After 99 comes 100. After 100 is followed by 101. So, but in BC, what comes forward? It is counted backward. What comes first? First comes 100 BC, then comes 99 BC. But whereas in Anno Domini, it is counted just like we do. It is counted forward. It is counted forward. BC is counted backward, Anno Domini is counted forward. It is counted forward means just like we count 99 AD comes before 100 AD. But in BC what happens? 100 BC comes before 99 BC. And their historians have used, in some of the historians have used the word called circa. This has been found in some of the records. What does circa mean? It is a Latin word. Circa is a Latin word. What is it? It is a Latin word. Circa means not exact but approximately. A period sometime around. Another, historians have also used BCE and CE respectively. What is BCE and CE? Historians have used BCE and CE respectively for BC and AD. CE stands for the Common Era. BCE stands for before the Common Era. Now, let us see history. History can be divided into two parts: prehistory and history. History can be divided into two parts: prehistory and history. What is prehistory and what is history? It can be split up into two parts: prehistory and history. Prehistory is the period before the invention of writing. The period before writing was invented means there were no written records or there were no written sources. So what were the sources of information during that period? What were the sources of information? Only archaeological sources served as the sources of information during prehistory. Prehistory refers to the period before invention of writing. Before writing was, there were no written scripts, there were no written evidences. It is the period before invention of writing or writing was invented. Before the invention of writing. Whereas history refers to the period after the invention of writing, the period that exists after there were written evidences. Written evidences means they were written scripts. Okay, they were written. In history, from where do we get the information? There are two main sources of information in history. One, archaeological sources. Two, literary sources. What? There are two main sources of providing information in history. The first one is the archaeological sources and the second one is literary sources. Archaeological sources. Second one, literary sources. Under archaeological sources, it can be again classified into fossils, B, monuments, C, inscriptions and edicts, D, artifacts and coins. And what? Coins. Literary sources can be again classified into A, religious literature, B, it can secular literature, religious literature and secular literature. So children, under archaeological sources, we have various sources. What are they? The first one is fossils, next monuments, inscription and edicts, artifacts and coins. So what are fossils? You all know fossils are the remains of plants and animals that have been buried under the ground. They are the remains of plants and animals that have been buried under the earth for millions of years, like the leftover of the harder parts like teeth, okay, the skull, the bones and all. So what are fossils? Fossils are an important source of information that can tell us about the various species that existed long ago. Just like, for example, dinosaurs. From the fossils of the dinosaurs that we found, we came to know that dinosaurs did exist in the past. How did we know? We came to know about the existence of which became extinct today, but they were present in the past. How do we know? From the remains or the fossils. Fossils are the remains of the harder parts of plants and animals that have been laid buried under the earth for millions of. Second one, monuments. What are monuments? Ancient buildings and structures like temples, Forts, stupas are called as monuments. Monuments are also another source of information. They provide us the information about the period, about the style of living of people of that period. They throw a light on their religious, social life. For example, the railings of the Sanchi Stupa, they throw a light on the life of Gautam Buddha, and the carvings on the Qutub Minar tell us about the period of the Delhi Sultanates and so on. So, monuments are also an important source of information. Now, coming on to inscriptions. What are inscriptions? Inscriptions are writings on a hard surface. Writings on a hard surface is called inscriptions. What is writing on a hard surface? Like earlier days, there were no paper, books and pens, like, so they used to write on hard surfaces like rocks, walls of temples, on the walls of caves. They were engraved. The writings were engraved on the walls of temples and caves in the earlier days. So they were called as inscriptions. Inscriptions are an important source of information. One such best example of this would be the Allahabad pillar inscription, which gives us a detailed account about the reign of Samudragupta and his various military achievements. Now, coming on to what are edicts then? If inscriptions are writings on a hard surface like rocks, pillars, walls of caves and temples, what are edicts? Edicts are official commands. The official commands given by the kings, or they are the official declaration or commands given by the kings. We find many edicts during the period of Ashoka. Now, moving on to artifacts. What are artifacts? Artifacts are nothing but they are man-made objects, like it could be pottery, it could be jewelry, like they provide a source of information about the lifestyle of the people, of the early humans, like through pottery, jewelry, coins, weapons. There are all examples of artifacts. Coming to coins. Coins are a very important source. Coins are a very important source of information in history, because firstly, coins tell us about the economic standard of people during a particular period or during the reign of a particular king. They tell about the economic standard. How do we know? Depending on the coins, whether it's a gold coin, it's a silver coin, a copper coin, or a bronze coin. So it tells about the economic standard of the people during that period or during the period of a particular king. Not only that, they also tell us about the scientific advancement during that period. Depending on the coin used, the metal of the coin or the alloy, we get to know about the scientific development during that period. Apart from that, coin also tell us that coin belonged to the reign of which king, or that coin belonged to which period or during the reign of which king. So coins provide us three sources of information. They provide information about the reign or the duration of the period of a particular king, because it was written or engraved on the coins. They were minted or engraved on the coins. It also tells about the economic standard of living of people, depending on whether it was a gold, it was a silver, bronze or copper coin that was used. Not only that, the metal or the alloy that was used tells us about the scientific development of that period. Now, moving on to literary sources. For understanding literary sources, we need to know what are manuscripts. What are manuscripts, children? Just a reminder, before I could proceed, most important thing, the study of inscriptions. What? The study of inscriptions is called epigraphy, and the study of coins is called numismatics. So before I could proceed, once again, I repeat, the study of inscriptions is called epigraphy and the study of coins is called numismatics. Now, let us see the literary sources. Literary sources can again be split up into religious literature and secular literature. To go through this, first we need to know what are manuscripts. The first literary sources were developed in the form of manuscripts. Manu is a Latin word which means hand. Manu is a Latin word which means hand. Which means hand. They are the first literary sources that were developed. The first literary sources that were developed were called as manuscripts. Manuscripts are handwritten records. They are handwritten records of the past. Do you think the earlier writings were on pen and paper? Were they in pen and paper? The writings were they in pen and paper? No. The earlier writings or the manuscripts, the earlier writings were first written on palm leaves or on the parchment. What is parchment? Parchment is the dried skin of various animals. Parchment was very expensive. Parchment means dried skin of many animals. The earlier literary sources were not written in writing, were not written on pen and paper, but they were written on palm leaves, on the bark of birch trees, or papyrus, a tree called papyrus, or they were written on parchments. Let me tell you, Chinese were the first to invent paper around 105 AD. Paper was invented around 105 AD, and Chinese were the first to invent paper. Mesopotamian writings are known as cuneiform. The earliest writings developed where? The earliest writings first developed in Mesopotamia. The earliest writings first developed in Mesopotamia, and Mesopotamian writings are called as, see, paper was first invented by whom? Chinese. In and around 105 AD. But the earliest writings were developed by Mesopotamians. So, Mesopotamian writings are known as cuneiform. Ancient Egyptians used reed plant name as papyrus for writing. The ancient Egyptian script was known as hieroglyphics. The ancient Egyptian script was known as hieroglyphics. So, what are literary sources? It can be divided into religious literature and secular literature. Religious literature deals with the Vedas. The Vedas are the first. The Vedas are the earliest record text of the Aryans. Aryans, early man. Vedas are the early recorded text of the Aryans. So, religious literature deals with the Vedas, the Puranas, the Upanishads, okay, Buddhist three Pitakas, the sacred books of the Buddhist three Pitakas, and Jain Angas. Whereas the literature other than religious literature is called as secular literature. Any other writing other than religious literature is called secular literature. Basically, secular literature dealt with plays, dramas, or the historical, the military achievements of various kings, biographies, or a record of historical events, politics, okay, politics, drama, plays, poems, or biographies other than religious literature. Everything else came under secular literature. Let me repeat once again. Religious literature, Vedas were the earliest text of the Aryans. Religious literature dealt with the Vedas, the Puranas, the Upanishads, the Vedas and Buddhist Angas, Buddhist, I'm very sorry, Buddhist three Pitakas, Jain Angas, and so on. Other than religious literature is called as secular literature. Secular literature dealt with politics, biographies, military achievements of kings during their reign, okay, plays, dramas, poems, everything comes under secular literature, like Vishnu Sharma's Panchatantra, Jayadeva's Gita Govinda, Kalidasa's Abhignana Sakuntalam and Meghaduta, and many writings of the Chinese pilgrim who visited India during the reign of Chandragupta. Fa Hien, the Chinese pilgrim who visited India during the reign of Chandragupta, wrote an account of his visit about the life of people during the reign of Chandragupta. All these come under secular literature. And Megasthenes Indica, Kalidasa's Abhignana Shakuntalam, Meghdut, Jayadeva's Gita Govinda, all others come under secular literature. So that's all for today. Thank you, and please do follow. I shall upload with the next video. I shall upload very soon in a couple of days. Thanks for watching.